Welcome to Goldfish on Games. When you think of charity in gaming, Humble Bundle and Awesome Games Done Quick comes to mind. But an early example in the 90s of using gaming to raise a lot of money for charity was done when everyone's favourite license grabber Ocean Software teamed up with a UK event called Comic Relief. Comic Relief, also known as Red Nose Day, is a yearly televised event that aims to raise money for various children's charities across the world using the medium of comedy. They do this by showing various live and pre-recorded skits on TV and getting people to phone in and pledge money. They also try to get the public involved by getting them to sponsor each other doing funny and silly things, such as the infamous sit in a bath of baked beans. So when Ocean teamed up with them, the only question remained was who's going to get hastily updated and get the license slapped on top of it. And in this instance that fell to SleepWalker, which was developed by CTA and released in 1993 on a range of hardware. This included Amiga 500, 1200 and CD32 versions, as well as coming out for the Atari STE and MS-DOS platforms. And surprisingly, it also showed up on the aging C64. What I have here is my Amiga 500 release that I got back in the day, and an MS-DOS copy that I got recently. You can't really miss the Comic Relief branding on the cover, or inside the box, as it came with a unique sponsorship form, with ideas of how you could use the game to raise even more money for Comic Relief. The game cost £26 British at the time, and of that £4.32 were given to Comic Relief. Now it might seem odd that only a percentage of the sale was actually going to charity, but this was deliberate. As this quote from an interview with Gary Bracey, who was the development director at Ocean at the time, shows. The first thing to point out here is that things are happening this way at the insistence of Comic Relief themselves. The reasoning behind their attitude is that if people are going to do something for nothing, they're unlikely to do their best effort. This was a top quality product that we'd already spent 2 years developing and had high expectations of making a lot of cash from. We could have just re-released Shadow Warriors or come up with a compilation of old stuff, as what happened with Soft Aid, but we put up a really good game and that we could have sold normally. So let's check out this really good game, which starts with a short but wonderfully drawn intro.
It was a quiet night, and I was having a lovely kip in my bed. When suddenly... Here we go again.
Being a Comic Relief game, they managed to get some of the vocal talents from a few celebrities that were often associated with the event, such as Harry Enfield, who did a blink and you'll miss it cameo during the startup sequence,
Comic Relief or something.
and Lenny Henry, who provided the voice of Ralph the dog. And if you check out the option screen, you might find something that wasn't all that common back in the 90s, and that was a dedicated practice level, which gives a very nice tutorial on most of the actions you'll need to use across the game. As the game itself revolves around you playing as Ralph, who has to do his best to guide his sleepwalking owner, Lee, safely through the level. This will include forming a bridge, kicking him across gaps, holding him back from cars, guiding him onto platforms at the right time, as well as taking out various traps and obstacles along the way. Typically you'll be able to find a nice spot to leave the nocturnal wanderer where he won't hurt himself, so you can go off and explore the level and try and work out the path you need to take. But don't leave him there too long or he will eventually wake up. His current awakeness is actually shown at the bar at the top of the screen. If it hits 0, Lee will wake up and you'll lose a life. You will also lose sleep by getting hit by some baddies or by taking large falls. But some of the traps are an instant wake up, such as water. So it helps that Ralph is very agile and effectively invulnerable. Most damage will only phase him for a few seconds. Being thrown out a window? No problem. Electrified by radioactive waste? Just shrug it off. Even bouncers are nothing but a temporary problem. One thing you can't help but notice as you play the game is how well animated he is. From swimming to using the club, it's all wonderfully done. And we might have a contender for the fastest animal alive, Move Over Sonic, as Ralph can really get a good bit of speed up, and looks quite funny when running at full pelt. Even more so when you get a Looney Tunes style moment when you run off an edge. The game takes place over 6 levels, which might not seem a lot, but each level was huge. In fact, one of the common complaints in the reviews was the fact that levels were too big and should have been split up. There are 6 themes across the levels: the city, the zoo, a graveyard, a construction site, a factory, and finally the rooftops. Each of which has their own set of traps and obstacles, as well as their own unique brand of humour. As it can be quite easy to either get lost in these large levels or forget where you left Lee, there is a built-in auto map. Just hit the M key and it will show you where you've been so far. On top of that, it will also show the location of both you and Lee. And if you don't want to fully explore the level, to fill out the map you can also find the dunce cap, which will do the work for you. And this isn't the only pickup in the game. You also have red noses, which give you another life, the whoopee cushion, which makes the collector invincible, the earmuffs, which put Lee into a deeper sleep, the false beard, which gives you a hint, as well as the custard pie, which will build a bridge over water. On top of all that, there's also 5 letters that are hidden around the level, which spell out the word comic. And if you collect all of them, Ralph gets a chance to have a nap at the end of the map, and you can enter a bonus level, where you have my own personal nightmare, word puzzles, as you have to collect various icons and math symbols to spell out a word or phrase, such as lamp, plus postbox, minus box equals
Lamppost, yes!
There are 6 such puzzles in each of these bonus levels, but there's also these balloons. Now if you collect 20 of them, you'll get an extra life. So what do you get for all your work with these monstrous word puzzles? Well, Ralph gets a chance to get his own back, as each word or phrase results in an animated sequence where Lee gets messed up rather than Ralph. Normally bring up the subject of cheats when it comes to games, but the developers must have been a fan of Ministry, as to enable the cheats you had to type in
Was ding-a-ding-dang, my dang-along-ling-long,
which was the intro to the song Jesus Built My Hot Rod. It didn't really do anything all that special. You could skip levels and top up the sleep meter, but I always found it funny to type in back in the day, and even more so when I actually found out what it was from. Budget re-releases aren't normally all that interesting, but the one for SleepWalker shows that isn't always the case, as when the Hit Squad republished the game they no longer had the license, so we actually get a chance to see the game that they had originally planned to release. And for the most part, there really isn't all that many changes. Various red noses have been removed, such as from the logos, the title screen as well as the pickup, and the letters you collect no longer spell the word comic, but instead bonus. One thing that did say the same was the fact that Lenny Henry continues to voice Ralph. So overall we can see that the license didn't really go all that deep. But the releases didn't stop there, as there was a roundabout release for the Super Nintendo. But you might not instantly recognise it, as it got rebranded as Eek the Cat, in which you now play as Eek and you have to guide around various members from the show to the exit, such as on the first level where you now have to guide around the granny, and now takes place in the zoo rather than the city. In fact, all the levels got split up into smaller chunks and their order was mostly changed around, which makes this game part reskin, part remix. They did at least redraw most of the graphics and even changed the themes for some of the levels, such as there's now an alien planet. But underneath it all you can actually still see the original level layouts, as well as some of the original obstacles. But one area that did get completely changed was the bonus level. Gone are the word puzzles that plagued the home computer users. Instead, you're treated to this level where you have to go around eating stuff using your massive mouth. To be completely honest, I have absolutely no idea what's going on here. Overall, it looks like quite a nice version of the game, but I don't feel it was animated quite as well. Amazingly, between all the various Comic Relief platforms, they managed to sell over 100,000 units. And when you add into the fact that Commodore released a special edition branded version of the Amiga 1200, they managed to raise almost £500,000 for charity, which is incredible. That doesn't even include the amount of money that people would have made through sponsoring themselves to play the game. So I hope you will join me in pledging some money to Comic Relief this year, and until next time, I've been the Goldfish, that was one hell of a dog, and this was Goldfish on Games.